Hello, everyone. Welcome to Divorcing Today with Jennifer and John. Today we have Russell Alexander, who is a family law lawyer. He practices collaborative law and also litigation. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
Welcome, Russell. Thanks for having us.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Jennifer. Thanks for having me on today. Very exciting.
Happy to have you.
So, Russell, in full transparency, I think I've known you for 4 years, give or take. We did meet at a collaborative event. I still remember that it was a Christmas or a holiday party. And one thing that drew me to you was you still are a very sincere, good person, and I think you come from you're well intentioned, and that's what I think drew me to you and you to me maybe. But please tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you you.
Well, grew up in Toronto, south of Aurora, Jennifer, in Etobicoke. Back when it was very boring neighborhood. Now it's exciting to live in Etobicoke. Who would have thought that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did my undergrad at University of Toronto, Victoria College. Did my law degree at Osgoode Hall Law School in Toronto. We focus mainly on collaborative practice, but we get cases that are already in court, so we end up going to court quite a bit. I love networking and meeting people like Jennifer and John at the various social events.
And I'm sure you get clients who come to you who are very confused and scared. And I would really like you to share with our viewers, when do you think that it's best for clients to contact you while going through the separation process?
Right. Well, think about it, Jennifer. If you've been married for 20 years and you're thinking about separating, your identity, your whole life is going to change. Your relationship with your children, your property's going to be shared, your income will change, your standard of living is going to change. Oftentimes, Jennifer, one person sort of runs the household finances. So you may or may not be the spouse with the handle on the finances or access to credit or have any kind of knowledge about budgeting or what John does in terms of mortgages, what they're going to need to get a new home or qualify for a mortgage. So really scary time. I guess the short answer to your question, Jennifer, is once you make the decision to separate, or your spouse has told you he or she's going to separate, that's obviously an essential time to seek a lawyer. But even if you're not sure, so if you're feeling the stress, if you're not sure the person you're married to is the right person for you, I would even recommend you go see a lawyer to get pre-separation legal advice. Doesn't mean you're separating, but you get an understanding of what your rights and obligations are. Your lawyer can help you with your budget. They can tell you what you can expect in terms of support. They can give you advice in terms of what documents and information you need to access before the breakup, because that information may disappear. So just get some planning in place. And if you never separate, fine, put the plan in your back pocket. If you are going to separate, then you have a team ready to help you as soon as something happens. And even contact somebody like John and find out, will I qualify for a mortgage? What kind of home can I buy? Very difficult to manage that transition. So you're going to need an expert like John in your corner to say, okay, here's what you're qualified for. And you're probably going to be bidding over asking with a clean offer if you want to get a property. So lots of planning ahead of time. Certainly pre-separation legal advice is a great idea. Contact somebody like Jennifer, a divorce coach who can help you through this as well. And there's nothing wrong with being prepared. You may never separate. It might just be a bump in the road. Or your spouse may have already commenced a court application. You're going to get court documents the next day. Then you're going to be scrambling to assemble your information and find a lawyer to help you. So if you can plan it out and organize it, is going to go a long way in taking some of the stress and fear out of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds like to be, well armed or well informed, and then you may not necessarily need to make that leap, but at least you have your ducks in a row if necessary. Would you provide any other advice to listeners other than doing the sort of the pre-plan, or is there anything that you see during the separation and divorce process where you're like, I've seen this 5, 6, 1,000 times. Hey, viewers, take the high road, or maybe do this instead of that. Is there anything that you see that you could share with us?
Right. Number one, recognize that your kids are going to do better if they have a good relationship with both parents. So you want to encourage the children's relationship with the other parent, even though that person may have committed an affair or done something improper. Studies show that kids who have good relationships with both parents after separation turn out to be much more successful members of society. Children who do not end up in the youth criminal justice system, they end up sometimes using illicit drugs, they commit suicide. Very, very troubling times for children of divorce. Secondly, manage your expectations. And lots of people get advice from their friends or their hairdresser or their spouse tells them what their rights and obligations are, which is usually incorrect. So manage your expectations and follow the advice of your lawyer. And I guess the other piece of advice, John, once things get going or the separation starts, would be maintain the status quo. Lots of times parents and spouses make bad decisions because they're upset. They feel that they've been wronged by certain events or that occurred during the course of the marriage, and they're seeking retribution or revenge. So we see this a lot, right? Credit cards get cut up, bank accounts get closed, people move money around or max out their line of credit. Spending patterns can change. They might be spending on their new partner. That is less so with the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic, they would take vacations with their new partner and not tell the other spouse about the spending. So maintain the status quo, which means keep the credit facilities open, keep paying your bills the way they've been paid. If you miss bill payments or mortgage payments, that's going to affect your credit rating and your ability to get a mortgage later if you need to. Maintain the status quo with respect to the home and the finances and the children. That's going to help keep the waters calm until you're able to negotiate a resolution with your spouse. When you start stirring the pot and taking actions out of spite or retribution, that's when things heat up. It becomes very difficult to find common ground. Usually your matter ends up in court and a judge will impose an order on you and your family that you probably won't like. You know your children best. So you don't want a third party stranger, a judge, deciding when you're going to see your children. They've never met your children. They probably will never meet your children and don't know your children. So it's a crazy idea that you would delegate that to a judge to let them decide what your relationship with your children are going to be. So by maintaining the status quo, managing your expectations, you got a good chance of structuring an outcome that you're going to find is acceptable.
That's great information. And I mean, by listening to your advice, it's kind of answered my next question to what are some of the major mistakes that you see clients make. But I would love if you would give us any more feedback on that, if there's something that stands out to you.
Liquidating assets is a big one. Removing spouses from health or benefit coverage unilaterally, right? That could have a significant impact, especially if there's an underlying health condition in terms of that spouse getting new coverage. I guess it's hard when you're going through it. For the lawyers, it's a rather mechanical process, but And no disrespect to John, there's this great chorus that there are friends and family members or girlfriends that kind of whip things up, right? This is what happened during my divorce, or why would you agree to that? I got a much better deal with this lawyer, or whatever the case may be. Listen to the advice of your lawyer. The stories that you hear, they may or may not be true, but they're fact specific, right? Their outcome are based on the circumstances of that family, and that may not apply to you. So try to manage your expectations, follow the advice of your lawyer. Obviously, with the Divorce Act changes, you're now required to explore alternative dispute resolution, which could be mediation, arbitration, collaborative practice before going to court. That's our policy at our firm, is to explore those options before you go to court and incur the expense and stress of a court proceeding. In addition, right now, courts are not having in-person hearings. You might not have a trial to 2-3 years down the road. So the court system's going nowhere in terms of being an effective way to resolve your matter. You're going to be waiting several months at least.
Well, it's very reasonable advice, right? It seems, very grounded, very comes from. I think your advice comes from a good place. So once someone has, called your office, they've talked to you, or they've talked to another lawyer in your office, or whoever, you've done the general intake. What's next? Right. So our show here is divorcing today. Now what? So they've spoken to you. Who are you referring? Like, what profession are you bringing in? Parent coordinator? Like, what is typical, if I can use that word?
Well, the gold standard, John, would be to do it collaboratively with a full team. So that's a full team of professionals. That could look like certainly a family professional, help with parenting plans and communication, a financial professional that will help with assembling the financial data, financial statements, net family property statements, property valuations. That's going to be required. We may bring in a mortgage specialist such as yourself, John, to help understand financing options. And then depending on the family, if it's a complicated family of some significant wealth, we would bring in corporate lawyers, tax lawyers to help with tax planning. We bring in estate lawyers to help with legacy planning. So if we're running a small business or large business, and if both spouses are going to maintain an ownership interest in it, and they may want to do that for several reasons, John and Jennifer. They may want to avoid an audit from CRA. They may want to avoid having the business valuated. They may want to avoid any tax consequence flowing from share transfers or the sale of the business. So if they're going to continue to operate but be separate physically and have a separate relationship in their marriage, we need to plan how the business is going to be wound up. What are we going to do about new partners? What interest can they have in the business? So there's legacy planning. We need to decide how. Usually lots of small business owners have family members and children working in the business. So we need to understand the legacy planning and what the role of adult children are going to play in the business. So that's the gold standard. Full team of professionals get engaged and work collaboratively. Doing it collaboratively, John, we can create solutions that are outside the box. Come up with a result that a judge is not permitted to come up with. Do tax planning, tax savings, legacies planning. So that's ideally the gold standard. Not every lawyer has collaborative practice training, and not every spouse wants to work cooperatively with their other spouse. But by engaging these professionals, it brings the best of the best into the picture. Some lawyers are jacks of all trades, right? They do a little bit of real estate, they'll do some criminal work, they'll go to small claims court, they'll dabble in family law, they might draft a will for you. When you're dealing with sophisticated clients with a lot of wealth. You need the expertise of a proper tax planner, a proper estate lawyer. I know my limitations. I'm not going to guess what the tax consequences of a certain disposition are going to be. It's much more efficient for me to bring in an expert and give us an opinion. So we rely on a team. We rely on other professionals. If there's mental health issues, we'll potentially bring in a doctor or a psychiatrist or a counselor to help as well. The more professionals you can get involved, the better the outcome is going to be for the family.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for all of your feedback and great information. If our clients are looking to contact you, where is the best way they can reach you?
Right. We have 7 offices, 2 in Toronto, probably going to our main website, russellalexander.com. You can pick the office that you want to work from. We're paperless now. We're completely remote because of the pandemic. So we use programs such as Adobe and DocuSign to sign documents electronically. We conduct Zoom meetings like we're having today for interviews with clients. The court is doing Zoom divorces now, so you can have a Zoom hearing with your judge. Ideally, it won't be on the couch in your track pants in between Netflix shows, but you'd be surprised at what we see online. Or they can, they can send me an email or phone me up directly, whatever is convenient. All my information's online.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really happy that you've given out some great valuable information for our listeners.
Yeah. This is a really important topic, Jennifer and John. I'm really glad that you guys are getting this information out to your listeners. It's going to help a lot of families out there who are struggling with the pandemic. And I really thank you guys for putting this program on. It's fantastic. Thanks, John. And I can't say enough great things about John. He's helped so many of my clients with financing who are going through a divorce. John, you really are a lifesaver when it comes to a crunch to buying a home and refinancing. So thank you for all the work you've done with our clients.
Well, thanks very much, Russell. It means a lot. Keep going. Keep telling people how wonderful I am.
Stop. I don't want to hear anymore. Just stop.
Yeah, bring it on now. Yeah.
I could go on. You provide great service, John. So I can't say enough good things about the work you've done.
Well, we can extend the show for another half an hour. It's not a big deal, right? Like just keep. I have all day now. I'm just gonna clear my afternoon.
Sure. Forget the holiday, right? Forget the Good Friday. Yeah.
Let's forget all the advice you gave previous. Let's just cut it to exactly what you're saying.
That was awesome. Like, and what I was explaining at the beginning was, like, I've known Russell for about 4 years, and when we met, he was very, very genuine, and I think his approach came out in this in the video today, and I hope that everyone who listened to it also felt the same positive energy. And I think he really comes from, or I know he comes from a good place and a good perspective, and he's a well-grounded professional that's able to help where needed.
Definitely gives people an insight that there are some good lawyers that are actually there to help and want to get people through this in the best way.
Yeah, and I liked what he said. He's like every professional has their limitations, mm-hmm. and he's like, I'm good in this area, mm-hmm. and I will bring other professionals on or onto the file or into the collaborative process on an as needed basis, mm-hmm. so we can get their perspective. Yeah, right? He's not a jack of all trades, which I think is really, really good.
Mm-hmm. I also really appreciated the advice he gave for people to the do's and don'ts, because I think those are things that you would only find out if you did have a consultation with a lawyer, and he gave those things just readily to people who may need to know them.
Yeah, don't drain your accounts. Don't take someone off life insurance or anything like that, which is, never even thought about that. That's great advice.
That is great.
And pay your bills.
Yeah.
right? Because especially if they're joint owners of the mortgage or of a credit card, that could negatively affect not just you but the other person, right? That's not
Yeah.
good.
Of course. And when you're upset, you tend to make decisions not rationally. You just will cut someone off or you'll do something to hurt the other person. But in the long run, it may be hurting you if it's not something that you should be doing during that time.
Yeah, like take a step back, breathe, and maybe think twice before making that decision.
Right. Well, I enjoyed today's episode, and I think that our viewers will as well. So,
yeah.
Divorcing Today with Jennifer and John. Now what?